Please enjoy this excerpt of Katrina, Eyes Have Not Seen, Ears Have Not Heard, the story of how an American city was taken under siege by powerful forces in government, by Gavin, Richard. Published by Author House. Narrated by Naomi Pete. Interview with Mrs. Clotilde Mack. Today is May 20th, 2007. I have the opportunity to interview a local hero of sorts. She is a true survivor, Ms. Clotilde Mack. I thank you for joining us today. Okay, since you lived in New Orleans, you've had to live through hurricanes before. Yeah? Oh yeah, big ones. Big ones. This was a big one that was coming. What plans did you make when you heard that there was a storm in the Gulf? I didn't make any plans. Like I said, I always stayed right at home. I never leave. I would have gone this time, but the mayor said no pets, and my pets were just like children to me. You have 3 cats that were like your children from what I understand. What were the names? Jill, Sandy, and Mike. You have a new one here. He's overprotective. He still doesn't compare with the ones I lost. Mayor Nagin said no pets. Were you going to go to the convention center or the Superdome initially? No. See, the buses, they were picking people up. I didn't know where they were taking people, but it was in the lower 9th ward. I would have lost my car, but my life would have been saved if I'd have gone down there. I don't know if they went to the convention center or where, but the bus was in the lower 9th ward. Okay, I know it's going to be painful for you, but if you could please describe what happened when the water started to come up, or when the threat was coming. I sat up all night that Sunday night. All of my lights went out at 11:45 that night. The next morning, it was clear, and I would have drowned right in my kitchen because I was feeding my cat. A lady called me. She had evacuated to Jackson, Mississippi. She called me to find out about the storm, and I told her everything was clear then. She was asking me what had happened, and I told her, well, my lights went out, and that was all. We hung up. I walked a little distance to the desk to put drops in my eye, and before I could turn around, the water was in my house, coming in at such a force. I just happened to be in the room that had steps that went up in the room, the upper room. So you had an upstairs house? No, just the room over my carport. Oh, I understand. Was this August 29th? Was this in the daytime? Yes, this was daytime. It must have been around about 8 o'clock or something. I called 911 and they told me to get to the highest level. I was sitting on the top steps then. I got up in the room and I called them again. I asked what particular time it was, and she told me 10 minutes to 10. I got on the phone and called my cousin from Pearlington, Mississippi. At that time, I had looked up and the water came up in the room where I was. I told him I was going to die in there. He said, oh, why would you say that, cuz? And I said, they said I had to get to the highest level, and I'm at the highest level. We hung up and I called 911 again. I asked them, did they have any control over the water in getting it out? And they said no. I said, well, I'm going to die then because the water is up through the room. She said, miss, I hope you don't. I could just see while sitting there that my furniture started floating, and I still didn't know where my cats were. So after the water stayed up in that room for about 2 hours, and then it went down and it stayed on the top steps. I started to go down the steps, but that's when the water was up to my neck. I had to retreat and go back up in the room, and at that time the cell phone system was down and I was lost to the world. When you called 911, were you calling on the cell phone or the house phone? The house phone was gone because the water had already come in. I understand. So the furniture floated away and the water was coming. What happened next? After that, I stayed up there a little while longer, and the water went down a little bit. I tried to get down in that room, but the water was there a long time. I held on to some of the furniture and it sticking up with the walking stick in the left hand and holding on to that furniture that had floated because I wanted to check where my pets were. They had gone up in the other part of the attic. I was in the closed-in part of the attic, and they had gone in the room, in the closet. There was a closing bed in the closet, and that's where they were. I came on back. I wasn't hungry then. I just had that sandwich that morning because the electricity was off and that stove was electric, so I had nothing but that sandwich. So that next day, I got in the water again and tried to open the refrigerator. I couldn't get it open because it was turned over. It fell with the door facing up. I made it over to the cabinet. I said to myself that I know people mix green beans with their salad and they eat it raw. So I went in there and I got 2 cans of green beans out of there. And I first had to pry open the drawer to get the can opener out because it was stuck. I went up in the room and I opened the can of string beans. I ate it all because it was so hot. There were no windows in that room. The next day I opened the other can and that's all the food I had while I was in there. The next day I made a will out because I knew I wasn't going to make it. I wanted my family to know what to do because they were young people and they hadn't gone through anything like this. I made a will out so they would know what to do.
Your relatives, they stayed out of town during the storm?
Oh, yeah, they were out of town. My closest relatives to New Orleans live in Gulfport and Pass Christian, Mississippi. They were in the same shape we were in. That cousin I was talking to in Pearlington was found in a tree because the water had come up. The whole town was talking about it.
This was in Mississippi?
Yes, that was right there, just 38 miles from here before you get to Waveland.
So after that day, you stayed in your attic for another 9 days.
I stayed in my attic for 10 days and nights. On that 11th morning, I came down early. The water was right to my knees. I came down early and I got in the bed down in one of the rooms where the storm had broken the window. It was broken and I said maybe I could get some air. I went there and you could hear the helicopters flying over quite often. I said to myself, why are the helicopters flying so low, not doing anything? I didn't even know they were trying to find me. After a while, I was laying there in bed. In fact, I didn't tell you this about the refrigerator. When I did get it open, I got the hammer and I pried it open. I found 7 little bottles of water and some cereal. The cereal had been opened, but the bag was dry.
So those 11 days, you saw the helicopters flying around and they weren't doing anything. Did you hear any boats passing?
No. You see, I didn't even get in the front of my house.
You were in the back part of the house?
Yeah, I was in the middle of the room. That's where the steps were. And then I would just make it to the kitchen, just trying to get something out of the kitchen and make it back to the room to check up on the cats. You see, they would come down in that closet. I was lying there with a bottle of water in my hand, and after a while I heard a noise up above me in that trap door. The attic trap door came open, and a voice said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yes, but I can't see you." And he put his hand down through that hole and said, "Can you see my hand?" And I said, yes, I can. And he said, "Will someone be there to save you?" And I said, "Okay." They told me that I was too weak for the helicopter. They had to break in otherwise because the iron door was locked. The wood door wasn't locked, but they had to break in to get to me. They got me out of there into a boat.
Okay. During that time when you were trying to contact 911, they weren't very helpful to you?
No, they weren't very helpful at all.
Were they rude to you?
They told me, "I hope you don't die up there."
This has been Katrina, Eyes Have Not Seen, Ears Have Not Heard, by Gavin Richard. To purchase your copy, please visit Amazon.com or ask for it in bookstores nationwide. Thank you.